Hi. This week on the Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks Show, we'll be looking into the origins of a relatively new character to the Marvel Universe who was co-created by Mike Norton, Eisner Award winner for his webcomic Battlepug. And why I mention that Mike is because we're actually going to be speaking with him at the end of this episode. We have a nice little interview that we're going to be playing. And if you haven't guessed it, this week we'll be talking about Greg Willis, a.k.a. Gravity. And that's what we'll be doing on the Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks Show. We'll be learning and talking about the origins and backstories of heroes and villains throughout the comic book universe and pop culture. We'll be exploring very popular characters, but we're also going to take a look at obscure characters you may have never heard of, but I think you'll dig. And before we start today's show, I want to mention that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day trial at www.audibletrial.com/heroes, villains, and sidekicks. So just go to that address, put in the website name, and there you'll find over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Gravity was created by writer Sean McKeever and artist Mike Norton back in 2005 and debuted in his own 5-part miniseries for Marvel titled after the character. The 5-part series was later collected in a digest format. Those are the smaller sort of graphic novel formats that was part of the Marvel Next imprint that was directed to younger readers, which makes sense since the character himself was inspired by the young Spider-Man, by a college-aged Spider-Man. So who is Gravity and what can this young hero do? Well, Greg Willis was born and grew up in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I love that, Sheboygan. It just rolls off the tongue. Now, we don't really get to see the accident that created Gravity till later in the series, till actually the 5th issue of the mini, but it's alluded to throughout the series that there was this accident that occurred. And what happened was Greg and his family were out sailing one day when there was a freak storm and Greg was thrown overboard and he was actually drawn into a black hole, a vortex that was hovering right above the water. He vanishes for some time and then returns floating face down, looking quite dead for all intents and purposes. But the character, of course, survives. And that's really all we get as far as an origin story here. There was this vortex, he was drawn into it, he came out looking none the worse for wear. So now fast forward a bit, and Greg realizes he has powers. Pretty cool powers, to be honest. Gravity has the power over, well, you may have guessed it, gravity. Greg is able to manipulate the gravitational forces that surround him and can affect nearby objects. So I just think this is a pretty cool power. I mean, think of it. By manipulating gravity, you can do things like fly, lift anything, make yourself or anything dense as steel, or sort of draw anything to you. So he's not, he doesn't have super strength, but he has the illusion of it because he can walk over, pick up a tank because he would lower the gravitational pull that the Earth, I guess, would have on the tank. And he'd be able to lift it right over his head. And of course, he can affect the gravity around him, which allows him to be able to fly. So I'm sure there's like a million more things that you can do with this power, but those are just the things that come off the top of my head. So it is one of those power sets, I think, that sort of like Magneto, that you can do a lot with. You're able to affect things at a very subatomic and a very basic level. I mean, gravity, think of it. If you can manipulate gravity, that is a huge piece of the universe. It's a huge piece of science. It's a huge piece of everything that sort of holds us and the planet and the stars and the universe all together. And you have the ability to manipulate that. Once Greg realizes he has these amazing powers, shortly after graduating high school, he goes off where any fledgling superhero goes. He heads to New York City to attend college at New York University. And while at an interview, a super battle ensues and crashes right through the window, right through the wall of where he's sitting, just destroying the room. and some pretty nefarious looking character crashes in through the wall. Now Greg runs off to do a quick change to fight off the bad guy. And of course there's this funny scene where he's trying to change quickly and it's just taking too long, and he actually comments that he needs to ask Spidey how he does it. Because if you think of it, how do you do that? How do you run into this room, take all your clothes off, put this mask on, and run back in? What do you do with your clothes, right? So Gravity rushes in and he punches this character named Rage. He's a big, huge guy, and he just punches him, and he goes sailing through the wall. And of course, Greg is quite pleased with himself, but he doesn't realize that there's another super in the room, Black Death. That's a pretty straightforward name, right? Black Death, who then attacks Gravity and mocking him and escapes. It's then that Greg realizes he actually punched the good guy and let the bad guy escape. So, think of the embarrassment here. This is like your first, your debut outing as a superhero in New York City, and the home of the heroes, right? Home of Spider-Man, your idol. And you pretty much beat up the good guy and the bad guy gets away. And so he's feeling pretty down, as you can imagine. And, through some other things that happened to him, he wonders if he should just chuck it all in. There's even a real Spider-Man-like cover where Greg is throwing his mask away. It's sort of like the Spider-Man mask in the trash cover. But, Gravity gets a few wins under his belt, and he gains some more confidence. He even meets a girl, Lauren, and he's got a roommate. And, he's starting to come into his own and feel a little bit more confident about being Gravity. Gravity even makes a new superhero friend known as the Green Witch Guardian. But here's the thing, his new buddy is actually the Black Death in disguise. And when it's revealed to Greg, when he comes out, it really undermines his confidence, especially when Black Death tries to use Gravity's powers to destroy the world. Because again, this is a very primal power he has. And of course, Greg just feels like he has just been a dupe. He's told this guy things, he's talked to this guy, and now here he is using his own powers against the people of New York and the world. Now, Gravity stops Black Death in the end, and of course, all is right in the world. And there is even a nice moment at the end of the series after he stopped Black Death for Greg when Spidey actually shows up, congratulates him, and passes on a little words of wisdom for the young crime fighter. And now a quick word from our sponsor. For you, the listeners of the Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks Show, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a 30-day free trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. I've used Audible for quite some time. It really lets me, listen to books that I don't have time to read. When you head over there, maybe you want to take a look at some of these books. There's some books I really quite enjoyed listening to. One is Marvel Comics, The Untold Story, just a fantastic book. The Supergirls, Fashion, Feminism, Fantasy, and the History of Comic Book Heroines, another great one. Will Eisner, A Dreamer's Life in Comics, and one of my recent favorites, Super Gods, What Masked Vigilantes, Miraculous Mutants, and a Sun God from Smallville Can Teach Us About Being Human. That one's by Grant Morrison. That was just fantastic. Now, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com, Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks for your free audiobook. Now, the next time we see young Greg is in the pages of the 2006 miniseries Beyond. In this mini, Gravity is transported to an alien world to find out he's not alone. On the planet, he encounters Spider-Man, Henry Pym, the Wasp, Raven, Kraven, Firebird, and the Hood, who have all been brought there by the Beyonder. Now, at some point, they realize that they are not only to fight the things that are there, but they're to fight themselves and do battle. Now, sort of like a Secret Wars type thing, right? So Hank comes out on top, Hank Pym comes out on top, but it's actually only a ruse to find out who the Beyonder actually is, because there's been some hints that this might not be the Beyonder. And also, of course, turns out that, of course, Hank didn't kill them. He just shrunk them down and it looked like that they were killed. Now, we then learn, because he gets all upset at being tricked, we then learn that the entity that brought them to the planet isn't the Beyonder, it's the Stranger. And he's one of the Eternals, and he likes to study things. He's pretty much a real jerk. He brings them there pretty much just to study their reactions. Now, before the Stranger can attack the group, the Watcher shows up. And it totally freaks out the Stranger because, of course, when the Watcher shows up, you know something really huge is going to go down. So the Stranger takes off. But here's the thing, the Stranger was what was holding the planet together. And of course, now it starts to break apart. Enter gravity. He uses his power over the gravitational forces of the planet to hold it together long enough to get everybody on board the spacecraft, this spacecraft they're going to be able to take off on. Now, using all he has left, Greg manages to drag himself up onto the ship as he's still holding the planet together. Unfortunately, when he gets to the ship and they're taking off, all of that was just way too much for Greg, and he dies. Now, the power that it took to hold an entire planet, it was just too much for him. So, wow. Here, the character is created in 2005, and then not even a year later is killed off. So that's the end of the show. No, wait, come on, I'm kidding. We're talking comics, right? Do you think he's really dead? He is not dead. Well, I mean, technically, he is dead. I mean, they usually do die, but this is comics, and he comes back. So Gravity's story picks up in issues of 545 and 546 of the Fantastic Four in 2007, when Michael Collins, the second Deathlock, finds Greg's grave desecrated and his body gone. He then enlists the members of the FF, who were at the time Black Panther, Storm, Human Torch, and The Thing. Now they follow the cosmic residue that trailed his body as it was taken into deep space to find that Gravity's body was actually taken by Epoch and resurrected. And not only was he resurrected, Epoch imbued within him the incredible power that transformed him into the new protector of the universe. So think like, Captain Marvel level power in Gravity. So Gravity and the FF and the Silver Surfer actually come up against Galactus, who is feeling more than a bit peckish. The team believes Gravity is attacking Galactus, but this isn't actually what he's doing. He is, yes, pouring all of this power, this newfound power, or given power, into Galactus, thinking, and people are saying, oh, you're trying to destroy Galactus. No, what he's doing is he's not trying to destroy him. He's actually feeding him. So he's pouring all this power into Galactus to feed him. I mean, I thought it was an interesting sort of way to do something a little bit different where, there's this fight and they blow people up, this and that. No, he says, wait, he's hungry, he eats energy, that's all I am right now, and he feeds him all this power. So with Galactus sated, our young hero sort of doesn't have the power anymore, and he actually gets to return to Earth, all, human again and alive. And after that, Greg pops up here and there in comics, most recently in the Fear Itself comic. I believe it was the Fear Itself Youth in Revolt in 2011. And I believe he also popped up a bit in the Spider Island series from Spider-Man. One of the most fun comics I think I've read Gravity in since his initial run there was in actually an issue of Marvel Team Up. It was Marvel Team Up Volume 3, and it was 15 through 18, so it was a few. And this is just a fun read, and it was actually written by Robert Kirkman of course, Walking Dead and and Outcast fame and all those things. And it's got, the storyline was called League of Losers. And the heroes that are in this sort of thrown together team are Gravity, Darkhawk, Dagger, Arena, X-23, Sleepwalker, and Terror. And they all get sort of pulled into the future where they have to stop this, time villain from stealing Reed Richards' time machine, that it's going to destroy the world. It's huge. It's going to be apocalyptic, and they stop him. And in doing so, in how they sort of make this happen, they're actually forced to remain in the future. So it's interesting that, nobody will ever know that, quote unquote, these League of Losers actually saved all of mankind. And of course, it being written by Robert Kirkman, it was just fantastic. The characters were really well fleshed out. It was probably one, other than the original Gravity series that McKeever and Norton wrote, it's probably one of my other favorite readings with Gravity in it. He's just a fun character. It sort of harkens back to the old times, these old Spider-Man books where he was young and he was in college and he was having these adventures and he was kind of new to things. And I'm sure that's what Mike was going for, and Sean, when they created him. I mean, especially at the end of that 5-part mini, you've got Spider-Man there sort of talking to him. And I know that Spider-Man is a character that Mike really enjoyed when he was a kid, and that's also who Sean and Mike sort of modeled that character around, this young hero who gets his powers and goes to New York City and tries to make a go of it. I think that's why I really enjoyed that first 5-part series, because it really was just a fun comic with superheroes and a kid trying to find himself and his place in the world as both a kid and a superhero. It was just a really fun read. You can pick it up in the digest, and the issues are out there. I just reread it before I did the show. I hadn't read it in a while. I believe I had the digest. I've read the issues, but I think I had picked up the digest as well. So that is the story of Gravity. And now we're going to actually hear a little bit more about Gravity from the co-creator of Gravity, Mike Norton. And you might know Mike Norton from his awesome webcomic, Battlepug, that is just, it's beautiful. The artwork is fantastic. The coloring, it is really well done. I'm going to put a link to it, of course, on the website, heroesvillainsandsidekicks.com. It is just a really fun comic, and we're going to talk with him about that. And he actually, this is a Eisner Award winning webcomic, and Mike Norton won that Eisner for Battlepug. So this is a really, really fun comic. So with that, let's go ahead and start the interview with Mike Norton. So, this week I was just looking through a list of things that people have mentioned to me. They'll send me emails or post it to the site, and one of them was Gravity. So I said, yeah, I thought that was neat. So I was like, wait a second, I'm starting to do some more interviews, and I want to see if I can get a hold of Mike and see if he can talk a little about the character. So they asked about Gravity, and I said, well, let me give Mike a call and see about the character, because what I've never got to do of the people that I've been interviewing, they haven't really been the creators of the comics. There are people working with that character, doing their own take on it. But so I've never got a chance to talk to someone who created their own character for a company or even for themselves. And I know you've done it with other things, which we can talk about too, like Battlepug. But something like a Gravity character, something like a character for Marvel, how does something like that happen? Are you asked to do that, or is it just something that was kicking around in your head and you pitched?
They asked Sean McKeever idea, and they for a new character sort of thing, and so he changed his Nova pitch into a new character, and that's essentially what happened. And then he asked me to get involved, and then we started designing all the little things of a personal character. And so we made him more like, because we're big Spider-Man fans, we made him more like the Spider-Man comic when we were kids that we liked so much, and Spider-Man fanboy because we were Spider-Man fanboys.
Yeah, I mean, I remember reading and I reread it before I did recorded the podcast and before talking to you, and I remembered that it was fun. It was like back when he was, just getting out of high school, maybe college level, just having, still not sure of himself, and you definitely got that vibe.
The whole idea of Gravity was to kind of bring back that sort of gee whiz sort of fun that we liked when we were kids, and it sort of became the theme of Gravity's entire existence at Marvel, because right after our series came out, Civil War came out, and that's sort of changed everything in that realism was sort of the thing in Marvel. Like everybody was either a bad guy or a government worker, and that wasn't fun for me. And I didn't want to draw comics like that. In Gravity was the antithesis of that. He was the guy that came in. It was like he saw a guy doing good, and he had powers, and he wanted to do that. And then after that, everything became too heavy. And we actually addressed a lot of that whenever we brought him back for other things.
Yeah, because after the series, and then we should probably say he has control over gravity and gravitational forces. And whose idea was that?
That was Sean. We had a lot of, because, he was going to be Nova.
Right.
And so Sean had to come up with a new power set, and that was all Sean. We didn't know exactly how powerful he was going to be, and we really kind of played fast and loose with it because we didn't know.
Right.
And another thing, after the first series came out, Joe Quesada he was talking to Sean, he said, well, we want to gear it up to bring back a new Captain Marvel. We want a new Captain Marvel to be Marvel, and we want to make Gravity. We're going to turn Gravity into Captain Marvel. We're like, oh, we don't really like that idea, but okay, yeah. And so they killed Gravity, and the whole idea was they were going to bring him back as Captain Marvel. They decided, as they always do in a lot of these crossover or big event kind of things, to change their mind, and so they just killed Gravity, and it wasn't until a while after that they brought him back.
Yeah, because they killed him. They killed him off in Beyond.
Yep.
And then when it was like FF in the 500s, like 545, 546.
Yeah.
They brought him back.
This cosmic being thing for a little while, and then he was all normal again, and depending on the writer, he was either forgotten about or he was a joke, or that kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's something, like I said, I've never really got to ask anybody. Here's this character you guys created, and you put him out there, and I do a webcomic, and I know what it's like to create characters, and sort of, you write them well because they're a part of you, and or you draw them well, you invest yourself into these characters. So what's it like then when, you're told, we're going to kill him and bring him back as this thing, and you just don't care for that?
Well, you can't really do anything about it. So that's pretty much all we just said, well, we don't really like that, but you guys are the boss.
Right.
That's essentially what happened, and we didn't do anything about it. That's just the breaks. So it happens every day. Yeah. At least we got to find out before it happened. A lot of times you don't.
It's just all of a sudden there it is. I think the other than your initial run, the 5 mini, I think I've got the issues. I read the issues, and I believe I got the trade someplace on my bookshelf too. The digest. The only other time I really when I read the character, I thought did a really good job on it, other than you guys, was when Kirkman wrote I'm not sure if he read those, but he wrote
I did.
Yeah.
I did like those. Okay. I mean, he didn't really, he wasn't a big part of that.
Right.
I mean, everybody was a sort of background character. I think the impression I got was that he really liked Terror Incorporated. Was pretty, because Terror seemed to get a lot of the screen time. But I did like how weirdly, the like alternate future it got, and how Gravity ended up with, I forget which character in there, but it was
X-23.
Yeah, they became a couple.
Yeah, stuck in the future.
I thought that was fine. I was just excited to see like like really talented artists drawing the character. Like Paul Pelletier did it in the Fantastic Four, and that one is Paco Medina, and I was just really excited, even though Paco drew his costume wrong. So that was me being nitpicky.
Right. Yeah, he's an amazing artist, but I can see where you're like, no, it's not. Especially when you're sitting at the table drawing this character.
They're tights. He has pants. They're pants.
We don't want tights. I like drawing the lines in the folds. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that was a decent series. I did enjoy that. So, when is the last time the character's been used? Do you have? I'm thinking it was in Fear Itself when you did that.
Yeah, Fear Itself was the last time I saw him.
Okay.
Before that, he had been in the Initiative a little bit, which kind of segued into Fear Itself. And Fear Itself was sort of me and Sean kind of addressing that whole, government worker or enemy kind of vibe that I was telling you about it, because, I mean, we made that a part of the story that, Gravity was not, he did not like this. He had opinions on what a superhero was, and this wasn't it. And, a lot like Gravity's character, he ended up making things worse than he did, better in the long run. And that was, the thing part of that, Sean is kind of a morose writer, and a part of it was from the beginning, we wanted Gravity to be this realistic, he's a realistic, sheltered white guy from Wisconsin. And I always thought that, as much as like characters like Kamala Khan is a great way to show the diversity of our country and how great, other voices are, I thought characters like Gravity were a great way to show how there are, voices among like white people that want to understand and then sometimes do not terrible, but dumb things and rightly are chastised and correct themselves, that kind of thing. But it's sort of a touchy thing to get into. So I don't think it's I have ideas for it, but I don't think it's ever going to see the light of day. Just because I think he's a good way of like saying, hey, this is how we can work together. I mean, I think Kamala Khan and characters like that are the way that they're doing it now, and those characters are great. But we wanted our Gravity guy to be sort of like what Kamala is, or what's a new character that's really exciting. We wanted it to be like that, but it makes more sense for it to be somebody of another point of view right now. So
yeah, and I mean, I think at the time when you were working on that, when there was all this sort of cynicism happening and Civil War was ramping up and heroes were fighting more against themselves than against bad guys. I mean, here's this kid from Sheboygan, going into the city, and it was just fun. It was refreshing, and it was but it still had an edge to it. I mean, here he gets conned by someone who thinks he's his friend, but it's actually the bad guy. And
that's Gravity's thing. I mean, he is this kid who wants to do the right thing, but he doesn't always know what that is sometimes. And I think a lot of times these days, people get really beaten on for not doing the exact right thing all the time, even though their heart's in the right place. And I thought that there's a lot of interesting stuff, but it also seems like it could be like a very touchy and dangerous place to go. And you'd have to be a much better writer than I to do it. And, Sean could certainly do it, but I feel like he would get, really depressing about it. And,
it's kind of like Powers, with Bendis with Powers, where, those people, because it's like everyday people who just get powers.
Yeah.
And you see, like, I always think of this one issue where, they go to the scene and there's like this woman who's just been splattered across the pavement while she's walking her dog because a super just crashed into her. Then they go to his house and they see that he killed himself with his own powers. He like had his fingers in his mouth like a gun with a note saying, "Nobody teaches you how to fly."
Yeah.
Like there's a guy who wanted to be a superhero and he ended up his first day out, crashing into somebody and killing him. So,
yeah.
But we'll see. Well, you didn't have to worry about, so much as someone now telling you what they're going to do with your characters because you've been working on your own stuff now, right?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, I've done a lot of other people's stuff too, but yeah, mostly it's my sort of thing. It's easier because nobody tells you you're doing it wrong.
The committee of one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also. I don't know how long I'll be able to use this as an excuse, but I feel like being new to this, I'm not as emotionally mature as other people that have been doing it, and so I'm not willing to sacrifice my children, so to speak, as far as ideas and goes. So I'm a very selfish and petty sort of creator. So it's. In my universe, it's my way or the highway, and so I'm not as good as working with people as a writer as I am as working as an artist. I don't know why yet. I think it's mostly because I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, also when you write, at least for me, it's I don't even think you're sometimes conscious of it when you're writing. How personal it is and how much what the characters are saying and feeling are what you're saying and feeling. So when someone else reads that or someone else wants to change that or someone else draws that in a way you didn't see it, it can sort of be disconcerting.
Sure, but people do it every day.
Yeah.
And they're able to. So I feel like I should get to that point or not bother.
Right.
So I don't know. If I'm doing it for myself, it doesn't matter.
Well, I'd read him here and there, and I don't know how I got drawn back to him a couple of months ago, maybe 6 months ago, but I finally read through all of Battlepug.
Okay.
Over on the website. And I had forgotten just how fun those are.
Yeah, I mean, that was exactly what I was saying. Just me doing whatever I wanted to do. I had a loose idea of what the story was, but I really didn't stick to it as much as, I wasn't concerned as much about telling a coherent story as I was about just doing whatever the heck I wanted to do. And so
drawing a Conan-like guy on a big pug.
Well, I mean, it's everything that I liked as a kid. It's Star Wars and He-Man and all this other stuff. And I don't hide it. It's just what it is. And I feel like doing that has made me a lot happier when it's one of my the proudest I've ever been of anything. So, and getting an award for it didn't help.
Right. You won an Eisner for that.
Yeah. So it didn't really help me assuage any kind of, maybe I should second guess what I'm doing with this sort of thing,
Well, I remember when I used to show my portfolio around a lot at shows and stuff, it seemed like everyone was more drawn to the webcomics I wrote and someone else was drawing, and then I colored. And I think it's because you just have more feeling for that sometimes. You're not, when I'm coloring something and it's for another company, you get the pages back and it's like, this guy's supposed to be blue or this is supposed to be green, and you're sort of just doing it, you're enjoying it, but you don't sort of feel that the kind of thing for the character, maybe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who did the colors on Battlepug?
It's a friend of mine named Alan Pasalacqua. We worked together on a lot of stuff.
They were really great. They were really fun.
He and I worked together originally on Green Arrow at DC, and he's colored almost everything I've done that wasn't, Revival or Marvel.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's great. Well, I don't want to keep you much longer. I can hear a Sharpie squeaking.
That's my pen on my Cintiq.
So you've gone full Cintiq. So do you draw all your stuff now on the Cintiq?
Yeah, I have for about 6 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. I started doing it around the time that I was doing, actually maybe more than 6, around the time I was doing Youth in Revolt, the Fear Itself series. Yeah. I started doing stuff digitally.
That's great. Yeah, mm-hmm. I've had a Cintiq for a while now too for coloring. I love them. There's no disconnection between where you're putting your mouse on, like an old, Intuos or something in the monitor.
Yeah. I really love it. It makes drawing fun for me again, which it was kind of not being fun for a while. So.
And how does that affect like an artist, or like I don't know how you are with like original art and stuff, but like, so technically there's no original art for you to like send off to a dealer or something, right?
Yeah, which my art dealer is really annoyed by. Right. But I until recently never really got a lot of requests for original art in the first place. So it's kind of like a catch-22. Yeah. I don't really care, but now people are asking for it, and I'm like, that sucks.
Well, I think it all comes down to you're having fun drawing this way, and you're more productive this way. So it's that to a few pages, right?
6.5 dozen the other. I don't really care. But like, my art dealer doesn't like it. He just has old Green Arrow pages to sell now. So.
Now, who do you sell your work through?
Cadence Comic Art.
Oh yeah, I bought from them. I collect original art, so yeah, I bought some pages from them from different people.
Yeah, they do a bunch of good people. I think most of the people in my studio are like Tim Seelig are with them.
Yeah. Yep.
So Ryan Brown as well.
So you're drawing away in the Cintiq. What are you working on now?
Right now, I'm working on another thing that I'm working up with Sean McKeever, speaking of Gravity. Oh. So I'm just drawing something with that.
Fantastic. Well, we'll look forward to hearing about it when it's announced.
Okay. I'll make sure that I let everybody know when it comes time. I don't know what that'll be, but...
All right, Mike. I want to thanks a lot for doing the interview. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, Mike. So that was my interview with Mike Norton. I want to thank him a lot for doing the interview. Now, again, if you want to leave me any type of a message on a idea for a show, you can head right over to the site, heroesvillainsandsidekicks.com, and you can leave a actual voice message by clicking on that little microphone. And or you could go to the episodes page, say for this episode, and say who you'd like to see. Or, of course, you can email. Well, I want to thank you again for listening, and we'll have more next week. Take care.